Hi and welcome to another episode of How It Works with Holger. Holger, that's me, as you might have guessed, Holger at flixengineering.com if you have any questions. Today I'm going to give you some insight how you can automatically update your Delphi applications over the internet, I called it, but as you will see, you have way more possibilities than just using the internet. You can also use it as a solution for an internal application inside of your own local area network. First of all, let's look at automatic updates in general. So they're the bane of most administrators' existences. Let's be honest about it. Like if you think of Windows updates, the first thing you think about is you leave your workplace in the afternoon and the next day you arrive and you're on the login screen, your session was lost. Oh, well, there was an automatic update, so you can't go on where you left off. That's literally what we all have experienced dozens of times. So what we're looking for is that you are able to control how automatic the process is. So you can either do a fully automatic implementation that your application looks somewhere, is there an update available, downloads it and replaces the existing application, or you can make it completely manual, meaning the user has to actively click somewhere, you check, you might not even check, you might just replace the application with a version that might be there on the server, and you do not even need to do a check if it is newer than the version that is on the disk. That is also an advantage that you have. So the level of detail you put into the implementation is fully up to you. That means, first of all, you can select different sources. You can put your updates on a web server, and then you use the HTTP or the HTTPS protocol for encrypted communication. You can also use an FTP server. Both variations are available, encrypted, unencrypted, or as I already said, you can also just put the file on a network share for your local area network solutions. And any file can be updated. That cannot be stressed enough. Like you can update any file inside of your application, not only the application file, but what is also important to note is you can also update the running executable. That means even if your Delphi application is just one executable file, you can deliver updates for that. The control supplied by TMS is going to do all the work for you, like creating a copy and then renaming the copy to the application that you're running right now. All that is handled by the component. So there's no need to build some complex plugin architecture or to build something like a library that updates your main application. Nothing of that is needed. You'll see it in this video. It's not going to be that long. You'll be able to build a solution pretty quickly. Also, handling of protected folders is managed. So you can even update applications that are in program files directories, for example, with Windows. So user access control is also handled by the control, and you can either replace existing files, or there's also the possibility to patch existing files. Nowadays, no longer an issue. Back in the day, we were really thinking about how much data you transmit over the phone line. Now with the internet, the patching solution has more or less become redundant. Guided update is also a key. You can guide the user through the update if you want to. That's the thing. Like if you don't implement it, it's literally just downloading the file, replacing, and done. But you can also select to show more and more information if you want to. For example, like here, seen on the slide, you can provide information what new features are going to be available in the update. So in addition to that, you can show a web page with the information about the new version. And of course, you can do this before the update. So the user can select, hey, I don't really want to update because I don't like the features or not right now, but I still want to look. So you can do these things like you used to from other good Windows applications. And you can also execute certain commands before and after setup to clean up or to do additional maintenance work, for example, updating a database structure. And License agreements are also handled, so you can show license agreements that the user has to confirm before the update is downloaded. And the biggest aspect of them all, you get all these dialogues and all these things to guide the user through your update process in over a dozen languages. So you don't even need to care about localization. The localization is also handled by the product. What is also important to note is how do you determine if your application on the server is new? And for this, TMS also gives you multiple solutions. You can either say, hey, this file based on its version info, size, or checksum, these are all alternatives, options, is new, and that's why the update has to happen. You can also pick a date-based approach if you don't version your executable files. As a side note, there has been an episode how it works with Holger for putting version information in your executables. That is a requirement if you want to use the file-based version info approach. You have to put the version info into your file. And then you have the date-based approach for dates. You simply say, hey, this version is from this day, and then the local date is being compared, and that way you know if the update is needed or not. And then, as I already mentioned, if you're not at all interested in all of that, you can simply put the most recent version of your application on a server or on the network, and then the user can click a button and the update is run no matter what, be it newer or not. There is no checking. That is something some people prefer because that way you can just run it once a month and you're always certain you have the most recent version. In this tutorial, I'm going to build an application in version 1 with my company logo. And as you can see, the version info is being read from the executable. And then we can click the check for update button and we'll get version 2.0 from the server with the TMS logo. So it's a clearly visual approach that the versions have been updated. I'm going to show this to you. So also the version again is being read from the executable, and you can then check for update and there's not going to be anything happening because there is no new update. We won't provide a new update. So all the alternatives are going to be shown, and after watching this video you'll be able to write your own update process for a simple application in order to keep it up to date over the internet. So let's go. As a difference to the previous How It Works videos, we can't build this from scratch. It simply would take us too long. And I'm going to provide you with the source of this so you can have a look at the code in more detail on your own computer, or even while watching this video, pausing, looking into the source code. Whatever approach you like, use it. What makes you learn the content best. So before I go into detail about the functionality, how you update, let us have a look at the TWebUpdate component. TWebUpdate, it's also a category in the tool palette, and as you will be able to see as soon as Delphi 11 updates, it is in the TMS web category. One word of caution: if you are also a TMS web core user, be aware that TMS Web has nothing to do with TMS Web Core, but the categories might be shown on the same toolbar palette. So be careful, especially if you type TWeb, you might get all the TMS Web controls as well. So be aware that you have to pick the TWeb updater with TWebUpdate. Category is called the same, and the reason for that is TMS Web, this category existed way, way, way before TMS Web Core has been an item. So you find the main component, TWebUpdate, and then you have a control to do the guided installation with your custom wizard, and also the wizard then can be customized in all the different languages that are available. So we're going to focus on TWebUpdate so you can see the process, how it works to update your application. I'm not going to go into the detail how to do the wizard and how to do all these things. There is also an application available that helps you creating these. I'll mention that in the end. I'm going to show you how the process works. If you're confused what kind of options there are, first read the documentation. Sorry, but the documentation explains it in great detail what parameters for the update are available. And second, you have a wonderful update builder application from TMS, and that helps you to create these update files for you. However, here I'm going to pick the manual approach so you really understand what is going on in the background so that you're able to customize quicker, and also you will be able to build a very simple use case like this one in no time without using any additional tools, and you can simply take this as a blueprint for your projects. So looking at TWebUpdate, yes, I've made you wait long enough. I apologize. So TWebUpdate has quite a few properties. I have to admit that, yes. So we're going to focus on a few of them. For example, auto restart, very important. That means after the update, your application restarts, and that will take care of the fact that you then run the most recent version that has been downloaded. Perfect. I would keep that enabled. And then extract zip, extract cab. We're not going to use it, but that tells you you can supply your updates as a zip file or as a cab file compressed if you want to. And then here you see FTP. That is very important if you want to use FTP. And the other parameter that we're going to use, we're going to update from a web server, from the internet, as I said. So that comes later on if we go to those properties. Language ID, important for the localization. And you can log the process using log file name. And then username, password, these things are important if you have to authenticate with the server. And also here, I skipped it, sorry. Host is the one that you need to use in order to supply your host name for the FTP, because HTTP comes down below. And then you have stuff for proxies. So proxies are also supported. So some companies still use proxies, so proxy is also supported. And you can show the download progress if you want to, and you can do a signature check and all these things. I'm not going to go into detail, but you see how sophisticated this control is if you want to. The same thing, time format, how you want to display the level of detail you want to display for your versions. I'm not going to use any of this. What is important is this one. Update type. That is the most important one, I would say, because there you pick how you're going to update the application. Where am I supposed to look? Where am I supposed to look for my application files? And file update is the one that looks on a network folder, FTP, FTP server, SFTP is a secure FTP, and HTTP update is for web servers using HTTP or HTTPS. So we're going to pick HTTP update, and from there, we're going to look at the URL, which is the URL for our update information file, and that's what it is, an INF file. And we're going to look at the structure of the INF file, and my HTTP server, or my web server, is at this URL. So let me make it a little bit bigger, like so. And that is the URL of my web server, and this file contains the information for the update. And that is something you need to learn, and that is something that you have to look up in the documentation, or you have to use the update builder, or you use the file that we create now in this tutorial as a blueprint and go from there, extending it. Checksums are also supported, so you can check if your update was successful. These kind of things are included in the component. You don't have to build that from scratch. You can use functionality provided in the component. Okay, so those are the properties of the component. Quite a few, But for this example, we're only going to use URL to set the URL of your web server, and then the HTTP, where is it? Right here, update type. Those are the most important one that we're going to use. To complete the component, let's also look at the events, and that gives you the possibilities how you can react. And as I already said, it is fully customizable. You can say what happens when my application closes, what happens on restart, before download, after download. All these things are fully customizable, and you can also interact with the different stages of the update, like license, validation, and all these things fully customizable. We're not going to use any of it because it works even without any customization. That's what makes this component so great. You can use it very basically, but if you want to, you can scale it to very, very advanced needs, that it is usable in any usage scenario I could think of. Let's look at the application, what it consists of. So we have the button that is supposed to start the update process. Easy. The version is the version found in the executable file. So we're also going to use txeinfo. Look on the YouTube feed for another How It Works with Holger. I explained how the component works. And we're going to use the version information, and we'll read it from project options. And if we look at the version information in there, version info, in application version info, here you see this is going to be our version 2.0. That is the version that we're going to use for the executable that we're going to create. Previously, I created this exact application. I switched the image to my company image, and the options, if it appears again, version info, I set major version to 1. That's the only difference there is. So I have 2 executable files, one with version 1 and the other one with version 2. And both of them, of course, contain the code for the update. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to update. And what you need to implement is TWebUpdate. That is the name of the control here, TWebUpdate. That's how I named it. And TWebUpdate.new version available. That checks if a new version is available. That's all you need to do. How it checks, like I've shown you on the slides, that depends on how you phrase your inf file, your information file. It depends on, do you pick the date approach? Did you pick the version approach? But that is all coded in the inf file. And the inf file or inf file is found using the method that you set. So we set the update type to HTTP update. That means this URL is used to find your update file. We're going to create this update file in a minute. And if there is a new version, so if this yields true, then we're going to call doUpdate. doUpdate. That's the name of the method. That's all you need to do. That starts the process. If you have a guided process, all the dialogues will be shown fully automatical. That's it. One line to update your application, to restart your application, to handle user access control, to download the content from the internet, all of that with one line of code. And after that, you also show a message if there is no update available. So if this is false, there is no update available. So we can say show message, no update necessary. And believe it or not, that is the complete implementation to update your application over the internet. Wow, that's it. First, check if there is a new version available. And second, start the update if that is true. That's it. You can't make it any easier than that. And it's fully customizable. That's what makes it so powerful. I have a little bit more eye candy in the application. I have a print version method that sets the version or the caption of the label, which is named label version, to the file version of the exe info. The exe info here, name exe info, gives us with a property, again, watch the video, the file version of the executable file, reading it from the executable. So if we start this, we should pretty much just get the TMS logo with 2.0. That is all there is to the application that updates itself. Of course, I held back both versions. Version number 1, this is the update example.exe 1.0, and this is update example 2.0. And I'm going to use these two files to show you how the update process really works. But I've been speaking about a INF file. We haven't built this INF file yet. So that is going to be our next job, to build the INF file that tells the update component what to do and which files to update. And that's the key thing to remember. The INF file contains not only the information for one file, no, it contains the information for all the files that potentially have to be updated. So let's look at that file. The file at its core is an ini file or ini file, whichever term you prefer. So you see, I named it update.inf. That's the file name I used inside of the IDE. So switching back, just to be 100% certain where I specified that, right here in the URL, update.inf. If you want to be extra careful, also use uppercase, lowercase, like it is in the application settings. Server name is something we're going to work on in a bit, but right now it is set to the IP of the server that I'm going to run the web server on, but later more. So back to the structure of the file. It has the update section. That's the main section that tells you global information, how the update is supposed to work. So here it says new version is going to be 2.0. That's the latest version that is on the server right now. And what is also important is files. Files gives you the count of the number of files that are supposed to be checked. It doesn't mean that they will be updated. They're being checked. And here I only have one. And then for each of the files that are supposedly or might be updated, you have to create a file and then a number. File 1, file 2, file 3. We start at 1, not at 0. That's a little bit different from Delphi. It's made easy by TMS that we can use the natural counting, not the computer scientific counting. So we start at 1, file 1, and then you specify where the file is on the server. So even if you have your update.inf file in the root or in a certain folder on your disk, you can put your executable files, your zip files, the version-specific files into subdirectories that you name with the version, for example. It doesn't have to be in the same directory. So in this case, the file is going to be at this server update example.exe underscore new. And that is important because the local version, you see this right here, local version specifies the name of the file after the update. So you download this file and then TMS makes certain that it becomes update example.exe. And in addition, because this is an executable file that is being executed right now, in the applications section, you said, yes, app update equals 1. I update the app that is running right now. Embraces as well. It doesn't need to be exclusive. So app update equals 1 means, yes, I am going to update the application that is running right now. Take proper precautions that that is going to work. And then you have to specify, and that is only going to be one executable. That is the name of the application, or that contains the main executable. And that is, in our case, update example.exe. That's our executable file. And this will then be replaced with the component of the update. And the component is update example.exe underscore new. This file right here. That's how you link it together. So Let's go over it one more time. The update specifies the new version as version number 2. This does have nothing to do with what version is on the disk of the user. If the user has version 2 already, that is exactly what is going to determine, hey, you have the most current version. If you select that you want to do a version-based update, okay, that is the key. Then the number of files is count equals 1. So we only have one file that is to be considered. And this file we specify in its own section, file 1. If we had 2 files, there would also be a file 2, 3 files, file 3. And the URL then specifies where this file can be downloaded. This could also be a different server, just saying. It doesn't have to be the same server. You can specify whichever URL you want. Just be careful if you use different servers. Authentication is, of course, only provided for this one. So new version 2.0 means for that file, because even though your application can be version 2.0, you can have different DLLs, different executables with different versions, of course. This is independent of that, but keep it simple in the beginning. Use the same version numbers. So new version 2.0 for this executable. And if the version is lower, it will get replaced with version 2.0. And the local version of this file is going to be update example.exe. That's it. And finally, we have to say that we want to update the application itself, that the running executable is to be replaced with a new version. And you enable that with app update equals 1. And then you say the app name, the executable, is this, and you find this as part of your INF file under this file name. And that will also take care of the fact that this file is being renamed to update example.exe. So we have one final thing missing, really, which is how do we get a web server? Well, I'm quite sure you have a web server. If you just want to test it, the best thing to use, and I know I mentioned sometime that I might write a book about it. I started, but not finished yet. So this is something you can use Docker for, ideally, because this way you can simulate anything that you might think about with regards to your updates. So what I do here is I create a web server that contains our application files depending on what I want to show. So right now, and the easiest way to show this is by showing the directory. So the HTML directory here is going to be the content of my web server. So right now, I have here an update example.exe_new. I'm going to delete that. And now I'm going to take version number 2, copy, paste, and then there is a update example minus copy, and I'm going to make this .exe_new. Yes, I want to change it. And now this update example.exe_new is going to be my version 2.0 on the web server. And if I run on my client the version number 1, it should get updated, right? That's the scenario. So on your side of things, you would upload these 2 files to your web server and make sure that you reference the update.inf file correctly. And in your update.inf file, like I did here, you have to specify the correct address to get the update example.exe_new. That can be any name. If you want to do _neu or _aktualisiert or _updated, whatever you prefer, use it. The main thing is that you tell in the INF file that this file becomes this file. That is the important thing that you need to remember. With that in mind, we now have these two files prepared, and now I can use a Docker Compose file to start a web service. I'm going to start a Nginx, and I'm going to start it on port 80. That's why this link is going to work without a port. And I'm also going to use the HTML subfolder as the root directory of my Nginx. That's what I'm doing here. Very short. You can use your own web server. You can write an indie web server. You can use one that you have from your provider. I'm sure as a Delphi developer, you have a working web server somewhere. This is just for me a good means to show you. And I'm going to start the web service right now. Good. It's coming. Good. So now I should have my web service running. So if I go to this machine here, I get forbidden because, okay, that is not something you're allowed to access. And if I say update.inf, I get my download of the update.inf file. So that works just fine. My web server is running. Back to Delphi. The same thing here. I have prepared the version 1, and the version 2 I usually, of course, don't have locally. It's somewhere else. So let's make a copy of version 1 and rename it to update example and start it. Right away, we see that update example version 1 looks completely different from version 2. Version 2 has the TMS logo, and this one has the Flix Engineering's logo. So clicking check for update should now tell us there is a new version because we prepared an INF file with version 2.0, and our executable should also be replaced because our executable has the version 1.0 right now, as shown here in the label, and should be replaced with version 2.0 that is residing on the server. Mind you that the executable on the server or the file on the server is not being checked. Only the information given in the INF file is being used. The INF file says, hey, this file is version 2.0. So check for update. And right here we say download update files. That means there is an update available. We can now still click no. Nothing's going to happen. So even with this little implementation, we're able to stop the process. We are able to stop something that we don't want to happen. So check for update again. Of course, it's still not updated. So yes, there is an update available. So you can run this multiple times. Download update files, yes. And shut down application to update executable files, yes. And now we get the, I don't know if you see this, but we get the user access dialog, yes. And there we go, version 2.0, TMS logo, our application is updated. And if we click check for update now, no update necessary. Perfect. That's exactly what you want as a smooth user experience, and TMS makes it so easy to update even your running executable. It's kind of annoying if you hear about this component for the first time today that you didn't know about it earlier, right? Because it's not that difficult. The most difficult thing most likely is going to be for you to have a web server that is available all over the world, or in your local area network to have a shared resource that all employees can access at the same time. But the technology that can be accessed using this great Delphi component is very easy to use, and it is flexible, so you can customize it to your own needs and even to your own language that you want to use. One word of caution. This has been a very, very simple example. And as you see right here, I had to rebuild my version 1.0 for the demonstration. I'm honest with you right here. Because I hard-coded the update mechanism, as you can see right here, I hard-coded the URL. And something like this should always go into a configuration file or into the registry. just as a precaution, because I switched servers today and I had to use a different IP address. So I had to rebuild the version 1.0 I prepared for you guys in advance, and the version 2.0 I could easily compile because I had the logo still in here. So what I'm saying is, consider making the URL that you use here a registry key, an ini file parameter, something like that, so that you don't have to recompile your application to use a different URL. And think about it. If you want to supply an update and you have a fixed URL in there, if you have to switch servers at some point somehow, or domain names or something like that, you just bind yourself in a very, very tight situation that you can resolve easily using an ini file or the registry. Stay tuned for how it works with Holger for these topics in the future. That was yet another episode of How It Works with Holger. Code-blooded as we are, we have seen that it's not as difficult as it seems. If you want more assistance for your personal programming projects, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm available for your Delphi developer needs. Email me at holger@flixengineering.com. And of course, subscribe to this video. That will tell us you're interested in more episodes. If you don't subscribe, we think you're not interested. So subscribe to this feed and also give us a thumbs up so that we know you watched this video and you liked it. Thanks so much, and see you for the next episode of How It Works with Holger.